There we go. So I'm gonna go into suggestions from last time, and we're gonna fix this up a little bit. So first, I'm gonna change our bullets because our player shoots the pong balls, which are actually the colliders are just regular colliders. So that means they'll like clip out of the player. Like if we go and we start shooting, then it'll push the player away. We don't want that to happen. So I'm gonna just copy the enemy projectile. I'm gonna disconnect it from prefab by going to unpack. It is a trigger, it is projectile. I'm gonna rename it. And then make another script like this. Create script. Projectile controller. I'm gonna copy this over from enemy projectile to the new script. I'm gonna say if you hit the enemy instead of the player, then you're gonna do that. So let's see if the player can actually shoot now. Go into the test player prefab. Actually, first we gotta make this prefab right. To add the projectile controller to it, I'm just gonna put the same speed and the same damage. I'm gonna remove the enemy projectile script, drag it into the prefab folder. Also, it's gotta be not green, probably. Just make it white, whatever. Then in the player, you can drag it in the projectile to the whatever ball is. I should spawn that instead. And it's gonna just shoot straight up. Except it's not hitting the enemies. Do they have colliders on them? They don't have tags on them. So I'm gonna add a tag and I'm gonna go to enemy. Still not working, huh? We have an error here. Oh, duh. We're gonna change this to enemy, test enemy, dot take damage. We're gonna just add this to the enemy. So I'm just gonna copy this thing, the die function and the take damage function into the test enemy. Don't need that. We don't need iframes. Just need that part. So reduce the health, and if it's less than 0, you die. When you die, you just deactivate it. We're gonna rename this to disable. And I'm gonna call this invoke disable we can just do this. We can just do take damage 1. Not that we need to at all. So I'm going to paste that up there so they take damage 2, then they get hurt and play the animation. And I think that should work. Hopefully I added the right script for the projectiles. Yeah, I think that's good. Yep, so they die now. And now, there's no animator attached to the component, to the game object. Weird. There's definitely an animator attached to the game object. That's fine. So it works until I die. Start level. No? Everything's breaking for some reason. Player prefs dot has key. You can just comment this whole thing out if you don't want this in here, but weird. So when I shoot them, they should animate without an error for some. Okay. Oh, it's because this test enemy up here is getting hit by it. It doesn't have an animator. That's why. So this one, we can just disable. Gotcha. Cool. So now we can shoot up. But what if we want to first let's shoot where we're aiming. So I'm going to go to the test enemy, and it has a thing to aim at the player. Actually, I wonder if I can just maybe I can just change this. So I'm just changing where you spawn the ball, spawning it at the player's position and with the player's rotation. That should hopefully just aim it where the player's aiming. Yep. So choose where the player's aiming now. Cool. And up the speed because it's kind of slow. To like 800 or something. I don't know. So I'm also going to make it so if I'm holding space, then I'm going to keep shooting. So I'm going to do something up here. I'm going to just name a public float time between shots equals 0.1f or something. I'm going to have float shoot cooldown. So if my shoot cooldown is less than 0, then I can shoot. And when I shoot, I just set it to this number. I'm just gonna, if shoot cools is greater than 0, shoot cools equals time dot delta time. And then when we shoot here, I'm just gonna say shoot cools equals time between shots. Also, we're gonna add an additional check up here, and shoot cools is less than or equal to 0. And we can just delete the down part of get key down. So input.getKey, so if we're holding the space bar, and we have no cooldown, then we're gonna spawn where we're aiming, and we're gonna reset our cooldown. And you can also change this in the inspector, time between shots, whatever value you want. If you want it to be longer time between shots, you can just make it like 0.3 or 4 or something. If you put it to 0, then it'll shoot infinitely, and it'll look like a giant like mass of bullets everywhere. Yeah, so you can shoot between shots now. You can hold it down in wherever you want. And I'm going to, oh shit, edit the player so it's like 0.25 shots. or 25 seconds between shots. I'm also going to spawn it at this position. It's a bullet spawn. I'm going to go in here. I'm going to name bull spawn.transform.position. And I can just say public game object bullet spawn. And I can just drag it in. And it should spawn up here now instead of in the middle of the player. Yep, now I can aim and shoot while just holding the button down. And one more thing is, yeah, we can also just do this. You could do invoke repeating and just call a function that just says instantiate this thing. Invoke repeating is the same as calling a function. You just give it the function name. It says, yeah, string method name, a float time, and a float repeat rate. So the time, so you'd say like shoot, and you would call it after 0 seconds, and then you would repeat it every like 0.2 seconds or something. And if you make a function shoot that just has this line in it, it'll do the same thing as this. You just have to cancel the invoke if you let go of the button that you're holding down. I like doing it this way better because I have more control over what I'm doing, and I can set my own values, and you know, I just see more of what I'm setting up, so it makes more sense to me that way. So one other thing was deactivating projectiles after a certain amount of time. So first I'm going to deactivate it if it hits a wall. Do we have a wall tag? We do not, but we can add one by going to the grid for our time lapse and go into the wall tag. Just add the wall tag right there. Then we can say if collision.compare tag, if we hit a wall, then deactivate it. And I'm going to save this to a function called disable. Just shoot. Copied and pasted nothing. So we're going to deactivate it. And I'm just going to say invoke disable after 0.0001 seconds or something. And then, so we have the enabled event, which is called when the object becomes enabled and active. So when you spawn it in the scene, it's automatically going to run this, whatever's in here. And onDisabled is the same thing, only when it's deactivated. So onDisabled is going to be called when we call this function. And we're going to do this. We're going to call disable once we spawn it, like 2 seconds after or something. This will deactivate it automatically. The problem is if something else deactivates it first, then it'll still call this deactivate. So if you like reuse the bullet for something and this isn't canceled, then it'll just deactivate the bullet like right after it spawns. I'll way later in the class I'm going to show how to like object pool, and like it's like an optimization technique where you make like a list of a bunch of different like objects that you're going to be reusing over and over again. Instead of spawning an object every time you need it, you'll spawn like 10 of them and you'll just activate them as you need to. That way you'll save memory, so you won't have to keep creating and destroying objects over and over and over again. But this basically helps with that. So I'll just do cancel invoke over here. That should be all we need. So when it's disabled, you just stop calling this. You don't want to call this if it's already deactivated. So I'm gonna copy that. I'm gonna invoke disable if we hit a wall. I'm gonna copy this whole section, I think, actually. I'm gonna paste it into the enemy projectile. I just need to call it up here. So that should work. If it hits any walls, it should be deactivated. Stupid window again is giving the error. It's fine. I think that's all we need. So now no bullet should go through this wall. And if we look over here, we can shoot our bullet up, and we can see after a certain amount of time it disappears. So they're gonna keep shooting. You can see right about here, yeah, the bullets start deactivating themselves. And you can tell in the inspector too when they start deactivating. Yeah, see, they keep on deactivating. Yeah, so object pooling would basically be where you would spawn just 10 bullets and keep track of those 10 bullets, and you would just activate them where you want to activate them and deactivate them when you don't need them anymore. And that would save a lot of memory, because if you have like, we only have like 5 enemies here, like 7 enemies, okay. But eventually with all this, if they keep spawning stuff, then it'll mess with your memory a little bit. I'm still at 1500 frames, but after like a while, and if they have like AI and pathfinding and stuff like that and everything else going on with your game, it'll make it really slow. So I'll show object pooling later on in the class. Not today, but like a month or so. Hopefully, if it's on track. But yeah. So hold to keep shooting, aim at mouse, deactivate up to a certain amount of time, hitting walls. Yeah. And if you want to modify how you shoot, like say we want to not shoot 1 bullet, but shoot like 5 or something. I'm gonna copy this, I'm gonna paste it into a shoot function. So this is initial shoot. Let me actually I'll make a copy of this. Shoot spread. So if you push space, you'll shoot. But if you push like get mouse button down, I guess. So if you're pushing, if you're left clicking instead, your mouse button, and why is it not? That's why. So we're gonna call shoot spread instead. So instead of shooting 1, I'm just gonna do a for loop to shoot like 5 at a time or something. Int I equals 0, I is less than 5, I plus plus. Then I just want to do this. So I'll spawn a ball at the same position, but I'll spawn it with a different rotation. Let me do this. So times quaternion dot Euler, and then this will just spawn at the same rotation. But in this last little part on the Z, I'm gonna do like what's a good angle for this? Say like 30 or something. So negative 30 F plus 30 times I or something like that. So when we spawn the first one, it'll spawn at negative 30 degrees. So if we're aiming straight up, it'll aim this way. And the second one's going to be, oh, I think it's 15 plus I actually. When it's 1, it'll be 15 degrees over from that, which will be negative 15. When it's 2, it'll be 0 degrees. It's 3 and it's 4. Yeah, I think that's right. Let's see if it does anything good. Yep, so we can shoot spread fire now. And we can hold it down to shoot a lot. These suits don't have the tags on them, so they're not dying. There we go. And we can do this by like 15 or something. I don't know if this will still work the same way. Let's see. Yeah, the angles are off, but it still works. It still shoots everywhere. You just change what the angle is, changing by every time. But yeah, let's see. Let's do like 20, 10F, so negative 20. That one's negative 10, 0. Yeah, that should be right. Hopefully. Cool. And you can just change the function, test different things out if you want, add different abilities or whatever. If you want to have like a shoot everywhere, but it's a really slow cooldown, you would just make a different time between shots and then call this function when you want to do that instead. Do one thing real quick. We have functions somewhere. Menu controller. We have all these functions. This is an easy function that'll just if you have a build of your game and you're running it like in a window, not in the inspector, but like an actual build, and you want to quit the game, you would just do function of whatever name. You would just do Application.Quit, and that should just quit the application completely, so it'll just close it out. So if you want to have like a menu and the menu has like a exit to desktop or something button, then you would just do that. Easy enough. And I can't really show it off because I don't have a build of the game. I'm not going to make an entire build to show off, but it's fine. But let's see. I was going to do a melee attack too. So let's do that real quick. Hopefully real quick. So I'm gonna go to the player. I'm gonna do animation. And just name it player idle. I'm gonna create a sprite, I guess. I have a sword already, although it's blurry. Just why you have to change to point filter. Oh, and also I have this little thing up here for the, yep, there we go. So apply. I'm gonna call this just sword. So during the idle animation, this is gonna be deactivated. So I'm just gonna click this little red dot and I'm going to deactivate this. Click it again. So if you play this, it's gonna be deactivated no matter what. Another clip called player attack. So I'm going to double click it. You'll see it here. It says game object is active. And then let's Let's see. I'm gonna give it a collider, 2D, make it a trigger collider. There's a couple different ways. I don't know if I want to add it to a new script for this. If I want to add it to the enemy controller, I think I'll just do this. I'm gonna add another script down here. Sword controller. Basically gonna copy from the projectile that just says this part. Just if you hit the enemy, then take damage. I want to write that all over again, so public int damage. I don't remember if it was int or float. Okay, it was int. Trigger enter, take damage. I think just for the enemies, they might need to have iframes so they don't take damage every frame that it's connected to the, or that it's registering the collision. Take damage. Just gonna add some iframes real quick. If iframes is less than or equal to 0, then you can get hurt. Let's say in here, I'm gonna duplicate this line. I'm gonna just name this iframes, float, iframes. When you get hurt, I'm just gonna say iframes equals 0.3 seconds or something. I don't know. Something like that. And this should be called whenever they take damage. So that should be good. So the enemy, or in the player controller, I'm gonna say mouse button down 1. I'm gonna say sword attack or something. Should just play an animation though, really. So we're gonna get a reference to the animator and enemy, or in the player we just made. Animator anim. Equals get component. So get the animator in the player, and then we're just gonna say anim.play. Oh no Japanese. Play player attack. And then I'll just set the cooldown again. Just so they can't spam it and keep playing the animation over and over and over again. Should hopefully work. And then we'll just set a transition from attack to idle. We'll click on the transition. I'll just make it so it only plays once. And it has an exit time, it automatically exit out into the regular animation. See if it does anything right now. Yep, so we can attack. But projectile. Let's see. I want to make this bigger and have it like swing from side to side. So go in here. I'm going to change the sword size of the collider. Push that a little more, like 1.8 maybe. And then I'm going to add this sword controller to it. I forgot to do that. Let's see if it does damage now at least. Yep, so it takes damage at least now. We'll just actually add an animation to this. I don't think we need this part anymore. The rendering of the front of the player. So they kind of aim at the mouse anyway, so we can tell where he's aiming. But I'm going to go to the player attack. Click keyframes. I'm going to change the position, then change it back to whatever I want the start position to be. I guess we can start at like an angle like down here and it goes like out, like Zelda kind of. If we rotate it normally, it'll look like this. We want to rotate it from the pivot though. So I'm going to go to the sprite, do sprite editor, and you can either change the pivot down here or you can drag this little thing around. It'll customize it or update it automatically as you drag. So I'm going to go pivot point to middle bottom center. You can just type 0.50, whatever. Apply, and then this one's going to be way up there. So we're going to change it to be 0.5-ish. Also got to change the collider position. So we're going to do 0.05, 1.15. Yeah, that works. And then if we rotate it now, it should rotate around the bottom. So we're going to start it at like 90 degrees. If you don't know how to rotate and do stuff like this, you're just going to go to the top over here. I like this one because it lets you do all the different options. And you just click on the little circle, the blue circle on the inside. You drag it. If you want to do certain angles, you hold control and it'll go to certain angles on there instead. So it's easier to snap. So it'll start right there. And then we'll click on another iframe. I'm just going to scroll my mouse wheel down so I can see more seconds. Like 0.3 seconds later maybe or something. Then we're going to be like in the middle. So I'm going to drag it up to the middle. 0.3 seconds later, it's going to be to the bottom. And if we play it, oh, it's really slow. Just click the keyframes and drag them down. So half the time. Except for this one's not updating correctly. Weird. So I'm going to click on the last frame. I want it to be at 90 degrees. Yeah, like that. Cool. So if we play animation, looks kind of plain, but that's fine. I'm going to click that again, the little red dot. So we stop editing and see if it'll actually do it. It actually attacks, kind of. So it's kind of small, but I'm going to change this a little bit. It's not quite updating right in here. 0.5. That kind of, and I'll do it like 2.5, 2.5 by 2.5, something like that. Override on there. That dude sucks apparently. Let me give him more health. It's gonna look weird because we haven't changed the UI size for the health, so it's gonna be like all the health jumbled together, but yeah, like that. But that's fine, whatever. As long as we can live long enough to actually attack. Also do another check in here in case we oh, wrong game. Sometimes when you this is deactivated at first, the sword, and when we actually do the animation, it'll activate it, it'll enable it, and if you enable an object and it's inside another collider, it might not register the on trigger enter function. So we're going to also add the on trigger stay function. So if we spawn already inside of the enemy, then we're going to make them take damage still. So we just duplicate the whole thing and just call on trigger stay instead of on trigger enter. And it should work the same way. So we can just hold it inside of the player or enemy without worrying about it. Cool. That's it for the attack animation. Hopefully that helps out. I know when I tried to do an attack animation, it took a long time to figure out or to find the right video for it, but some melee attack, better shooting. We already did text. Oh, that's still in there. Should I start doing shoot 'em up? Because I can start right now if you guys want, but it doesn't really matter to me. There's no questions so far, right?
I'm good so far.
Sounds good. So I was getting a drink. Okay, so let's go into a new scene. I'm gonna make, do I have any backgrounds? Shit, no backgrounds. I'm gonna copy this over so I have something in the background at least. Don't want the walls though, I just want the actual grass background. So, oh, that's not good. How did I fix that last time? If you see on the camera over here, like it's when you move around, it's kind of clipping through the objects. There's a way to fix that. Let me see. I didn't fix it in this scene apparently. I probably fixed it in the racing game though, did I? 0.360, why is it perspective? That's the wrong camera, I think. That's wrong, there we go. There we go. So 3.61. So changing the size kind of fixes it. Turning these off also fixes it. So I'm going to turn off those two things. I'm going to change the size to 5.61. Something like that. 0.61. 0.3. Hopefully that fixes it. The camera's going to stay still anyway, so it doesn't really matter on this one, but just in case you have things moving around and your tile map isn't quite fitting together exactly. Like it's like half a pixel off or something. Like if you zoom in far enough, it might like not touch each other quite right. But yeah, should fix it if you change the size and turn off these additional settings because it's pixel art probably anyway. So you don't need to have HDR, high dynamic range, or anti-aliasing. Yeah, no anti-aliasing in pixel art. So I'm gonna make a shmup now. I'm gonna go add a sprite. I'm gonna call this the player. Add the player tag to it. I'm gonna drag in my ship sprite. I don't remember which ship we're supposed to be. Let's make it the MiG. I don't know. I think those are supposed to be 32 pixels per unit. Also, not that it really matters. Those are 100. Guess it's fine. So 000. We're in layer 1 or something, just in case. Yeah, it's fine. This one's -2, so it should be under everything else. I'm gonna add a 2D collider to it. Size it down a little bit on both sides. Not that it really matters. Should be able to shoot the same way, I think. Or shooting just says move up and hit the enemies to do damage, right? Move up, hit the enemies, do damage. If you hit a wall, destroy it. Yeah, so this we can just reuse completely. We don't need a new script at all for this. So I'm going to make a new script. Shmup player controller. Movement should be mostly the same as this one too. I'm gonna copy that so I don't have to paste it, or so I don't have to type it all up again. We need a speed, a rigid body, and an input, like last time. Public float speed. Public float. Vector to input. Rigid body to d bod. It's good for the movement. Objects bullet. Duplicate it. I'm gonna make a bullet spawn. I'm gonna have 2 bullet spawns, so I'm gonna make it an array. I'll just shoot out both of them at the same time. So void awake bod equals get component. Body 2D. Add force right, add force up. If autocomplete, thanks. Put that get key. I'll do space again. Float time between shots again. So same thing as last time, basically. And we're gonna shoot. So for shoot, I'm gonna loop through all of the spawns in here, which is just 2. I equals 0, I is less than bullet spawn dot length I plus plus. Then I'm gonna instantiate a bullet there, so I'm gonna do instantiate bullet at bullet spawn sub I dot transform dot position. We should just go up, so I'm just quaternion dot identity. And at the end, I'm gonna say cools equals time between shots. Then one more thing, I'll say if cools is greater than 0, then cools minus equals time dot delta time. So I can move up, down, left, and right with this. If we hold space and our cooldown 0, we can shoot. If our cooldown is not 0, then we reduce it every frame. And then when we shoot, we just loop through all of the spawn points and just spawn a bullet at that spawn point, and it should automatically move up. And then we reset our cooldown. So I'm gonna add 2 game objects to this. Also, I'm gonna make this not blurry by doing point filter. There we go. I'm gonna change my projectile to be an actual bullet, maybe. That might make it look better. Oh, it's really small though, Jesus. Never mind then. I'll fix that in a second. So the player has to have a rigid body with 0 gravity scale. I'll give it like 4 linear drag or something. I'll add Shmup player controller to it. I'll give it a speed of like 1200 or something, I don't know. Bullet spawn 1. You can give little icons to your game objects and stuff that are in your scene if you want to like look at stuff easier. Like if things don't have sprites but you want to see where they are, you can go to the top right in the inspector, top left I guess of the inspector, and you can click the little drop down and they have little icons, and you can click on an icon. Like if this was bigger, I'm probably gonna make it bigger actually. Let me do this. Let me do, yeah, it's really zoomed out. Okay, so I'm gonna change the pixels per unit on these ones. I have more than one plane, so I'm gonna change them all. It's like 32 or something per. I'm gonna change all of them to point. Look decently big now. Oh, because I'm in the game view. Yeah, so now you can kind of see it better where it is on here. I can just drag it over here. I'm gonna duplicate it, and then I'm just gonna remove the negative on there. And then if you want to edit something in here without closing the window, like dragging a reference, if you don't want to drag all these over one by one, you can click this little block bar at the top right. If you click on an object, it won't change what you're selected, what you have selected in the inspector. So I'm gonna click and drag both of these into the bullet spawn, and I'm gonna unclick it and updates. Yeah. So now I have 2 of those in there. And I'm also going to make another bullet prefab, unpack it, bullet. I'm gonna call it Shmup bullet actually, so I know what exactly it's for. I'm gonna drag in the bullet. Yeah, it's gotta be bigger now. Make it like 2 by 2, maybe it might be too big. It's fine. Hopefully it's fine. I'm going to reset its circle collider so it's not super big. Oh, it is still super big. Never mind. It's supposed to adjust to the sprite size, but I guess it doesn't want to for this. 0.085 maybe? That's probably fine. That is going to be is trigger. Drag it into the prefabs again. That's not the prefabs. And then in the player, I'm going to drag in the reference to it, the bottom, delete it in the actual inspector. Hopefully it works now. Let's see. Yep. So we can move, we can shoot. That works out. Cool. Let's see. So we can move, we can shoot. What did I do for the other one? Let's see. Shmup, I did keep track of score, add enemies, and I think that was it. So I'm gonna make a Shmup game controller. We need health for the player too, right? Forgot about that. It's kind of important. I think we can just copy the other parts over. Copy the max HP and the. We're not using a health bar anymore, are we? We're using this instead. Yeah, I'm gonna copy all of this to it. The move heart, the add heart, and this part that sets the starting health. Paste it right in there. I can say public int HP. No. I don't like it being public. I'll make the max HP public though. And then we'll do public game object HP image and public game object health parent. I'm going to just separate these, doing header, starting stats, and shooting stuff. Down here, I'm going to go health things. Health things and shit. Cool. And that really just shows it in the inspector where I can actually see little titles, so starting stats and stuff, and health things and shit. Cool. I'm gonna go to the samples thing again. I'm gonna copy the canvas over. I'm gonna delete what I don't need though. So paste it. We don't need those two. We don't need the buttons. We can keep the pause UI, I guess. We need the health parent. We don't need. We can disable the coin. We don't need coins right now. We can use the coins instead for like a score text. It's already connected to the top left anyway. It's already there, so we can just use that later on. But health parent, we can drag it into the player. Health parent, and we can go to our prefabs, and we already have a heart, so we can just drag it in. I'm gonna set our starting health to like 5 or something. I'm gonna look at I kind of want to see what this looks like. Let's see. This is way off. So let's go to like the middle top. Negative like 200. Oh, that's a lot. Oh, negative 150 maybe. I don't know. I don't think we need that, but that's fine. If we have 500, if we have 5 hearts and each image is 50 by 50, 25 by 25, okay. 25 times 5. Good math that I can't do on the spot for some reason. Oh, that's how to do it. Cool. So we'll just have it like that. So 5 hearts. And I have a must call. Weird. It's fine. I don't know what that error is from. Yeah, now we have 5 hearts. Still looks a little weird to me. I don't know why it's doing that. Weird. Like 8 back or something like that. I don't know. Oh, before I forget, I'm also going to go to the player and I'm going to freeze the rigid body rotation. So if we touch any of the enemies, they won't like rotate us around like crazy and break the physics. So we have those. We just need to copy over the damage functions. Let's see. So take damage. Oh, and the die. Copy it over to the Shmup. I'm gonna do that. I guess we're gonna do iframes again because it's already there, so why not? Public float iframe time, I think 0.3f or something like that. Float iframes. That should work automatically from that. Just commenting out the blood particles. We don't need that for this. And then I'm gonna go to the game controller and I'm gonna test it by saying if application.isEditor if input.get key down keycode.l, I guess. Get a reference to the player controller. Oh, to the Shmup player. Shmup player controller. Player equals find object type. I can just say player dot take damage. I'll pass in 1 damage. That way, if you push L when the game's running, we can test this. Instead of having to make an enemy and set the whole thing up. We'll do that later. Oh. And it's not working for some reason. Cool. Oh, because we don't have a game controller in the scene. Duh. I'm going to create empty. I'm going to 0 it out. I'll just give it the game controller. Now it should work. Yep. And then we die. Cool. Once I start enemies, it's going to be a long process, so I'm not going to do that today. But yeah, I think I'll stop there for now. Yeah, I think that's good. I didn't continue this at all. Like I said I was going to, but think it's pretty easy. I was just gonna add, like, if you hit the coin, then you pick it up. Mobile player. Wait on trigger enter if other dot compare tag coin. Destroy other dot game object. Oh, 2D. Let's see. Okay, easy enough. That took about 10 seconds to do. We had all the setup from last time, but try to work on both back and forth next, well, I guess not next time. I guess in a week, because Thursday I'm going to see if you guys need help with anything and go from there. But yeah, that should be all for now. I'll see you guys Thursday if you show up. If not, then I'll see you next Tuesday. I'll just hang out for another 5 minutes in case somebody has any more questions.